Good day everyone, I am Adesanya Ewaoluwa, a member of Group 9, and we're going to be discussing the relationship that exists between logic and legal thinking. Legal thinking is the way and manner in which legal practitioners, lawyers, and even law students reason in settling disputes and solving legal cases between parties in a dispute. Now, we all know that legal thinking is a process that is used in the application of the law to settle disputes. So therefore, we have to understand the relationship that exists between law and logic. Concerning the relationship that exists between law and logic, three schools of thought have been developed by normative logicians and legal philosophers. The first group are referred to as the believers. They have the view that there is a fundamental relationship that exists between law and logic, as logic is the foundation on which legal systems are built. The second group are referred to as the skeptics. These people are skeptical in the sense that they believe that there is little more logic in legal thinking or in process of applying the law. Basically, they believe that these two concepts occupy separate fields and have little or nothing in common. While the third group of people are referred to as researchers. Although skeptical about the relationship that exists between law and logic, they search for a definition of the relationship that exists between law and logic. We cannot fully understand the relationship that exists between these two concepts without first understanding these individual concepts. With this, we will be analyzing logic, its definition, principles, and how it is used as a tool in legal thinking. And we'll be talking about the definition of legal thinking, instances where logic has been applied in legal thinking in cases in Nigeria, and how logic is used in contract drafting when it pertains to legal matters.
My name is ONYEDIKACHI. I'm going to tell you what logic is, what legal thinking is, and the integration of logic and legal thinking. Now to start with, we all know that logic is the study of how we reason and make arguments. And without logic there, we don't know whether an argument is valid or invalid. It's logic that helps us to differentiate a sound argument from an unsound one. Now, logic has various principles and aspects. Some of the aspects of logic include formal logic, informal logic, and symbolic logic. Formal logic is an aspect of logic that deals with the structure of arguments. Another formal logic, we have predicate logic and propositional logic. Now, informal logic is an aspect or a branch of logic that deals with arguments in everyday language, while symbolic logic is an aspect of logic that uses symbols in order to express logical expressions. What is legal thinking? As well, legal thinking is the analysis and interpretation of legal rules and principles by legal practitioners in order to solve legal problems.
Good day everyone, my name is OBIAKWATA and I'll be talking on the principles of logic and materials for legal thinking. There are three fundamental laws that govern foundation of rational thoughts, logical reasoning, and reality, and these are law of identity, law of non-contradiction, and law of excluded evil. These laws are known as fundamental laws of logic. These laws were originated from time of ancient Greece and from an ancient philosopher, Aristotle. These laws have been in place since the time of 300 BC. In recent times, another logical law has been added, which is known as sufficient reasoning. On the other hand, legal thinking is the application of logical reasoning to interpret laws, analyze cases, evaluate decisions, and reach to a conclusion. This method is used by lawyers, judges, and legal practitioners. It helps them approach and tackle legal issues. Moving on to the materials for legal thinking, there are two basic categories under the materials for legal thinking, and they are normative and factual. Normative materials are the rules, regulations, obligations, and the attitudes that we all know as legal. On the other hand, we have factual materials. Factual materials are materials that are not normative materials, in the sense that this comprises of legal reports, judicial precedents, legal digest, and all other secondary basics that we use as law practitioners, apart from normative materials.
Moving on to the integration of logic and legal thinking. Using logic and legal thinking is the combining of logic and legal thinking by legal professionals in order to solve legal problems. Integrating logic and legal thinking will actually help people that are solving legal problems to solve it more efficiently.
I am Ewaoluwa, and I'm going to be talking about the interdependence of logic and legal thinking. So firstly, what is interdependence? Interdependence is the state of relying or being dependent on something or someone in order to be able to achieve something. So in relation to logic, and legal thinking. The interdependence basically represents the reciprocal relationship that exists between the two of them, in the sense that logic needs legal thinking because legal thinking involves methods and principles that will aid legal practitioners or lawyers in basically analyzing legal issues. So it will help them to evaluate their evidence, it will help them to construct arguments, and it will help them to read to good conclusion as well. Legal thinking is logic because logic has techniques that will help them in how to analyze issues. And what are those logical techniques? Those logical techniques are deductive reasoning, inductive reasoning, crime-based reasoning, principle-based reasoning. So this will basically help people to be able to interpret their status, to be able to make good decisions, and to settle disputes in legal matters. So logic in a way also influences the legal framework of a country. Logic and legal thinking refers to getting known truth from unknown truth. And what is that known truth? That known truth that we know is the law. What can be defined as a body of rules, regulations that are made by authorities in that country in order for them to be able to control the activities that goes on in that particular state. So legal thinking is also relating to the law in that sense. Putting everything together, we can define the relationship between logic and legal thinking as the process of analyzing legal issues logically. It will basically help people with the legal field to be able to navigate through the legal system and they both relate to each other in solving complex issues. The interdependence of logic and legal thinking ensures that legal thinking is grounded in rational systematic application and that logic is practical in its nature. Logic and legal thinking basically influences the legal system in a whole. The interdependence of legal thinking and logic basically enables the legal system to be able to resolve disputes, to apply justice in resolving those disputes, and for them to be able to uphold the principle of rule of law. So that's basically what interdependence of logic and legal thinking is talking about.
I'm OKAFOR, and in continuation, logic influences legal thinking. As legal practitioners, we make use of logic because logic and legal thinking are very symbiotic in nature. Without logic, there cannot be legal thinking, and without legal thinking, there cannot be logic. As legal practitioners, we make use of logic in the sense of assimilation, dishing out definitions and answers to arguments, issues, and so forth. Then we have legal thinking applies logical technique. Us legal practitioners make use of logical principles to apply facts to their conclusion, like deduction, invalid and invalid reasoning, inductive and deductive arguments. Legal framework shapes logical thinking. Legal framework influences how logical techniques are applied to interpret status and then determines the conclusion of every statement or argument. Then we have legal thinking refines logical technique. Legal thinking helps to break down logical technique into different compartments and makes it easier for the legal practitioners to assimilate, understand, and help out in day-to-day cases. Comparison between practical reasoning or common sense and logic. Practical reasoning is the ability for every normal human being to reason, weigh options, make judgments, and reach conclusions inductively or inductively, while logic is the ability to reason through formal methods and has invalid or valid conclusions. Practical reasoning is given by God, which means that every human being is born with it, whereas logic is learned and studied in school to help legal practitioners in their day-to-day life. Practical reasoning does not involve inductive or deductive reasoning, whereas logic involves inductive or deductive reasoning. In practical reasoning, the conclusion is not always valid, but it depends on the scale of preference, whereas in logic, it is concerned with validity, and logic is not the law, and the law is not logic.
My name is Remo, I'm a member of Group 9, and I'm going to talk about how logic and legal thinking can be used together in various perspectives, like case analysis, legal research, and contract drafting. Logic involves the valid reasoning and invalid reasoning analysis, while legal thinking involves the interpretation of laws, statutes, precedents, and how you can apply those legal principles to address legal issues. So how do logic and legal thinking be used together in legal research? Legal research basically involves finding out legal sources of law and how you can use those ideas to support the case. So we have steps involved in legal research. We have identifying issues. So basically, identifying issues means when a client comes to meet you as a lawyer with a case, now you have to know where the facts and the issues are in the case. We have finding relevant sources, primary sources of law. When the case is on your hand now, you have to know the particular laws you have to apply to solve the case. So this basically involves you knowing where to find the law to apply to your case as a lawyer. You have applying those laws to your facts. When you're done finding your relevant source of law, you have to be able to anticipate your judgments in the case. We have contract drafting. Contract drafting basically involves the creation of legal documents that outlines the rules and regulations of both parties involved in the contract. So last but not least, we have public policy. So this basically involves the contract being in line with the public policy. So if you are going into a contract, your contract must not be in contrary to the constitution, because you have contracts like human trafficking. So those type of contracts are not in line with the constitution. So you can't involve yourself in those kind of contracts. I hope you can see how logic and legal thinking are applied in contract drafting and legal research.
Hello everyone, I'm LOVETH OJIMA, and I'll be talking about instances where logic was applied in the process of legal thinking. Applying logic in the process of legal thinking has helped a lot of legal practitioners in analyzing cases and drawing a perfect conclusion. It has also helped them to identify logical fallacies in an argument. It has also helped to settle legal conflicts like conflict of interest and conflict of law. When we talk about conflict of interest, we're talking about conflict that arises when you have a particular case and you have a special interest in it. So in such cases, you will not be allowed to be a judge or a jury in such case. That is conflict of interest. And then when we talk about conflict of law, we're talking about when two nations or two states are in conflict, and then each of the states or nation are trying to bring out law or judicial precedents that will help resolve the case. So it takes logical thinking in applying it in legal reasoning to know which of the precedents or the law to apply to it. For instance, the case of Ewaoluwa and the Federal Ministry of Internal Affairs, where he was charged for treasonable felony and conspiracy. He brought in a lawyer from British to represent him, but the lawyer was denied access into the country because they gave him reasons that a foreign lawyer cannot represent him in the case that has to do with his country. But he defended himself with Section 21 subsection 5C of the 1960 Constitution that says that an individual who is charged for a case can actually bring anybody to represent him, but he was denied the access because the person was a foreign person and not a Nigerian. So with the help of logical reasoning, now applying it to the legal thinking, now it helped the judges to draw a perfect conclusion and not let a foreign lawyer come to defend or be a member or a representative of a case that has to do with a different nation. From all that I've said, I hope you have been able to grasp that logic reasoning is used in the process of legal thinking.
My name is Ewaoluwa. I'm talking about the benefits of logic and legal thinking. You already know the interdependence between logic and legal thinking and how they affect one another, and the reasons why it's very important for logic to exist and legal thinking to exist, and for both of them to cohabit and help one another. The reason why this subtopic is titled Logic and Legal Thinking, like the benefits of logic to legal thinking, is not because there's no benefit of legal thinking to logic, but rather because the benefit of logic to legal thinking is more profound and is more in number than the benefit of legal thinking to logic. Also, the benefits of legal thinking to logic are embedded in the benefits of logic to legal thinking. So as time goes on and as I expand the benefits of logic to legal thinking, one can clearly see the benefits of legal thinking to logic as they affect each other in both ways. So the first one is accuracy of legal analysis. How does this happen? We already know that legal thinking involves a whole lot of legal arguments, legal documents, legal analysis, and carrying out all sorts of files in order to win a person's case. And we already know that the legal analysis and how accurate it is the basis for a person's plea in court. It is basis for the decision that is taken in court based on what the person has brought out in their plea, based on what the person has brought out in their arguments. Hence, how does logic affect this? How does logic help this at home? Logic is like structural, logic is systematic, logic follows a set of rules. Now, and one thing every lecturer looks out for in a person's file or in a person's assignment is orderly presentation of fact, structured presentation of fact, a systematic manner of bringing out what they want to bring out, and in an accurate manner. So how does logic help legal thinking in this sense? Logic is structural, and logic helps us to make our legal arguments structural. It helps us to make our legal analysis structural. When we're analyzing a case, our analysis is going to be perfect and systematic in order to win the favor of the judge in the case. So we have prevention of fallacious statements. What do I mean by fallacious statements? We already know that fallacies are errors in errors in thinking and mistakes or faulty assumptions in arguments, as has been taken by another group. But then, how does logic and the prevention of fallacious statements affect legal thinking? Now, we already know that there are some fallacies that may occur in legal thinking. What do I mean by that? According to Rami in her work, Introduction to Logic and Legal Thinking, she made mention of fallacious statements that may occur in legal thinking. For instance, appeal to inappropriate authorities, irrelevant conclusions, or applying a general rule where it's not supposed to be. Now, what does this mean? There are fallacious statements that can actually occur in legal thinking, and logic is there to prevent these fallacious statements. Logic is there to prevent these statements from occurring in our legal analysis and legal arguments. Number 3, we have ethical compliance. Ethical compliance is like an entire concept that occurs in legal thinking, because in legal thinking there are certain protocols that need to be followed, there are certain like ethics that need to be complied with, and logic helps us to comply with those ethics. How does this happen? Logic is basically like a systematic or structural manner of addressing issues, and in a manner that helps us to solve problems more adequately and to make informed decisions. In relation to ethical compliance, there are protocols in legal thinking which logic helps us to adhere to strictly through a structural and systematic manner. Number 4, we have persuasion skills. What do I mean by this? We already know that in legal thinking, there's a need to be persuasive, there's a need to know how to sway your judge into seeing things the way you do, into judging the matter, or into bringing a judgment on the case in your favor. So logic helps legal thinking. When judges use logic thinking, when judges think logically, or when legal practitioners think logically in the legal practice, it helps them to be able to be persuasive. They help them to be able to see things from a logical perspective and be able to like judge the matter in a manner that is actually structural and systematic. Moving on, we have making informed decisions. How does logic help in making informed decisions in legal thinking? This is mostly on the part of judges rather than lawyers. Now, for judges, when judges have a prior logical thinking and they are able to understand the manners of thinking and the mannerisms or the mechanisms of thinking logically, they are able to make decisions that will help to ensure justice in the legal system and the judicial system as a whole. We know that the judiciary is the last hope of the common man, and we need judges to actually be able to make informed decisions so that they don't put the lives of people and their liberty in jeopardy. When judges have logical thinking and they are able to think logically, they are able to make decisions that will help for the overall development of the society.
To reiterate what my fellow group members have said, logic and legal thinking are like two siamese twins, which implies that they are conjoined and underscores their inseparability. So the law must interact with reasoning. This is inalienable and it is unarguable. We should know that logic is foundational to legal thinking, and likewise for legal thinking is foundational to logic. So, legal thinking and logical skills are dynamic skills that evolve in an ever-evolving and ever-changing world. So there is need to improve and develop these skills by counseling, attending lectures, and so on and so forth. You could also study more of these textbooks to understand it better. My name is CHUKWUKERE, and I'm a member of Group 9. Thank you.